Pay attention to Christina Morris, 23 years old, walking into a parking garage in Plano, Texas, at shortly after 3 in the morning. She has less than 5 minutes left to live as a free woman. Because Enrique Arochi, 24 years old, a former high school acquaintance, is walking right beside her. On this day, Christina's goal is simply to get home to her boyfriend and her warm bed after a night out with friends. On this day, Enrique's intention is fueled by a dark, simmering frustration that is about to boil over. This is the story of 3 minutes that changed everything.
I just want to say that I'm innocent. I didn't do anything to Christina Morris.
The setting for this tragedy is Plano, North Texas, a city that prides itself on safety. It is part of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, home to nearly 300,000 people and the headquarters of major businesses. It is a remarkably safe city for its size, exactly the kind of place where you never expect a true crime nightmare to unfold. But it happened. The timeline begins on Labor Day weekend in 2014. Christina and her boyfriend, Hunter Foster, had split up for the weekend. Hunter went to Dallas to hang out with his male friends, while Christina headed back to her hometown of Plano to reconnect with her girlfriends. On August 29th, she met up with friends at an apartment in the Shops at Legacy, a wealthy urban village filled with bars, restaurants, and upscale apartments. The group spent the night hopping between bars, enjoying the festive atmosphere of the long weekend. Christina was careful, only sipping a drink here and there, maintaining control. By 2 in the morning, the group had returned to the friend's apartment to wind down. However, the night was not ending peacefully for Christina. She was texting Hunter, and the digital trail suggests she was angry. She had wanted him to join her in Plano, but he had refused, staying in Dallas instead. Her friends noticed her distress. The frustration was radiating off her. Initially, the plan was for Christina to crash at the friend's apartment, staying safe and off the roads. But, fueled by her annoyance with Hunter and feeling sober enough to drive, she changed her mind. She decided she wanted to go home to Fort Worth. At approximately 3 in the morning, Christina Morris walked out of that apartment. She walked into the darkness she feared so much, heading toward the parking garage where her silver Toyota Celica was waiting. She never made it home. The alarm bells didn't ring immediately, which is often the tragedy in these cases. The next morning, her friend sent texts checking in. "Hey, get home safe?" There was no response. Calls went unanswered. Silence stretched into Sunday, then Monday. By Tuesday, September 2nd, the silence was deafening. Christina was supposed to show up for work on Saturday, but she was a no-show. She was supposed to be there on Tuesday, but again, her desk remained empty. At 11:17 at night on Tuesday, David Morris, Christina's father, made the call that no parent ever wants to make.
Communication. How may I help you? I'm trying to report a missing person. My daughter. She hasn't shown up from work. I'm just finding out about this. Everybody's freaking out.
He described her vehicle, a 2001 Toyota Celica, silver in color. The investigation was officially open. Detectives immediately turned their attention to the boyfriend, Hunter Foster. In the world of investigations, the partner is always the first person of interest. Questions arose immediately. Why didn't he report her missing earlier? He lived with her. She had texted him that she was coming home. How could he not notice she wasn't there for days? Hunter's explanation was simple, if frustrating. He knew she was angry with him, so when she didn't appear, he assumed she had stayed with her parents or friends to cool off. It was a plausible excuse, but investigators were skeptical. He didn't seem perturbed by her silence, which raised red flags. As police worked backward through the timeline, they played a game of telephone with the partygoers to identify the last person to see Christina alive. That path led them straight to Enrique Arochi. Enrique had been at the party, part of the extended group from Allen High School. Witnesses placed him walking Christina to the parking garage. When detectives contacted him, Enrique played the role of the helpful citizen perfectly. He admitted he had walked with her, but claimed they went their separate ways once they reached the garage. He told police he had parked in a different location, so he didn't see her get into her car and didn't see her leave. Investigators rushed to the parking garage at the Shops at Legacy. They found Christina's car exactly where she had left it. It hadn't moved an inch. The doors were locked. Her personal items were not inside. The scene told a chilling story. Christina Morris seemingly never made it to her driver's seat. The search for a missing person had just become a hunt for a kidnapper. Detectives needed to speak with Enrique face-to-face. Detective Sarah Steele contacted him while he was at work at the Sprint store. The recorded conversation reveals a man who sounds calm, cooperative, and almost too eager to help. I wanted to see if I could get you to come by so we could talk to you about Christina, Steele said. Enrique responded, yeah, definitely. I want to help. He agreed to leave work early and come to the station. During this call, Steele pressed him on the details of their walk. You said that you were leaving at the same time as Christina and you guys walked over to where your vehicles were parked. Is that right? She asked. Enrique's story remained consistent.
Yeah, we walked separate ways. We walked until the end of the apartment complex, and after that, we just split up because I went to a different parking lot that she was.
Enrique arrived at the station and even consented to let police view the inside of his car and take pictures. At first glance, nothing seemed amiss. He appeared to be exactly what he claimed, a concerned acquaintance caught up in a tragedy. But detectives were simultaneously looking hard at Hunter Foster. The public and Christina's friends were suspicious of him. Why wasn't he leading the search? Why wasn't he screaming from the rooftops? Hunter was not forthcoming. He refused to hand over his phone to the police initially. When investigators finally obtained a warrant and got the device, they found he had deleted a massive amount of data. This looked incredibly guilty. When Hunter finally agreed to a media interview, he appeared unstable, vibrating with anxiety.
I just want her to come home and be alive and safe. If I would have been there, none of this would happen.
Was this guilt over her disappearance or guilt over something else? While Hunter was acting suspicious, the police made a breakthrough that would pivot the entire investigation. The shops at Legacy was covered in surveillance cameras. Detectives began the tedious process of reviewing hours of footage. What they found was a caught-on-camera moment that shattered Enrique's story. The footage contradicted his claims entirely. Enrique had stated, clearly and repeatedly, "We just split up because I went to a different part of the house." But the grainy black and white video showed two figures walking together into the same parking garage. Enrique did not split off. He walked right into the structure with her. Police brought Enrique back in for questioning, armed with this contradiction. "You're thinking it might be a possibility that you could have walked through this garage?" the interrogator pressed. Enrique began to backpedal, his story becoming fluid. "Possibly," he stammered.
Possibly, I wasn't sober at the time.
Okay. The investigators then dropped the hammer. Not only did they enter together, but Enrique's car, a Camaro, was seen exiting that same parking garage. The timestamp was crucial. His car left approximately 3 minutes after they walked in. 3 minutes. That picture is taken of you walking in that garage with Christina, the detective said, pointing to the evidence. And that's your car coming out of that same garage. Enrique scrambled for an explanation. "I guess I parked there. I went to the other car and she went her way." The detective pushed harder. "You just stood there and watched where she went?" "Yeah, I should have done that." Enrique deflected. When asked if Christina had ever been in his car, he was adamant. Not at all. No. This was the turning point. Enrique had lied about parking in the garage. He had lied about walking her to her car, and now investigators believed he was lying about her being in his vehicle. The theory was forming. Christina was likely in that Camaro when it drove out of the garage 3 minutes later. Was she there willingly or unwillingly? Given the short time frame, investigators considered that perhaps she accepted a ride, thinking he was a safe friend. Or perhaps she was forced. Either way, the investigation shifted from a missing person case to a homicide inquiry. Police obtained a second search warrant for Enrique's Camaro. This time, they weren't just looking with flashlights. They used luminol, a chemical that glows blue when it reacts with the iron in blood. Initially, the luminol showed nothing. The car was remarkably clean, too clean. It looked as if it had been deep cleaned, like someone was trying to cover something up. This led detectives to Enrique's home, where he lived with his parents. They raided his trash cans. Inside, they found the smoking gun of a cleanup operation. Heavy-duty cleaning supplies, bleach, towels, and rags. These are not the items you throw away unless you are trying to destroy biological evidence. Digging deeper into the trash, they found a Post-it note written in Spanish. It was a bizarre to-do list. It read, black shirt, texts, bills, things from August 29th. The night off. It was a checklist for an alibi. Enrique was wearing a black shirt that night. He was reminding himself to get his story straight. The mention of bills gave police an idea. They subpoenaed his financial records and credit card statements to track his movements after the disappearance. This led them to security footage from a gas station the morning after Christina vanished. The CCTV capture showed Enrique vacuuming the trunk of his Camaro and washing the back of the car with intense focus. Why would a man with a hangover be deep cleaning his trunk at a gas station the next morning? With this new visual evidence, police seized the Camaro for a third time. They weren't taking no for an answer. On September 26, they cut out sections of the trunk liner and sent them to a specialized lab for DNA testing. While they waited for results, Enrique went on the offensive. Sensing the walls closing in, he launched a media campaign to proclaim his innocence.
I just want to say that I'm innocent. I didn't do anything to Christina Morris.
He told news reporters. He tried to explain away the lies as simple memory lapses. It wasn't that I falsified anything, he claimed. It's just I forgot where I parked my car. I'm a really distracted guy. I don't have a sense of direction. It was a weak defense for a local who grew up in the area. He portrayed himself as a victim of harassment.
I feel like they're very wrong. They're accusing me of something. They're pressuring me to say something I don't know,
He said of the Morris family. They've put my name out there so much that people are starting to see me as a monster when I'm really one of the nicest people you can ever meet. When asked directly if he harmed her, he replied, "No, I didn't. I wouldn't harm anything. Not even an animal, a fly, nothing." But the public wasn't buying it, and neither were the police. Investigators executed a digital dragnet, tracing the pings from both Enrique's and Christina's cell phones. The data told a damning story. About an hour after the Camaro left the garage, both phones pinged off the exact same tower north of the shops at Legacy. They were traveling together. Then, at 5:30 in the morning, Christina's phone went dark. It ran out of battery or was destroyed. Enrique's phone then pinged back at his home. The next morning, Enrique arrived at work at 11 in the morning, 3 hours late. His coworkers noticed something alarming. He was limping. He had visible scratch marks on his body. He looked, in their words, messed up. When police asked about the injuries, Enrique claimed a tire fell on him while he was working on his car. It was too heavy, so it just landed right. He gestured vaguely. It was another convenient excuse. Investigators also noted a dent on his car, which Enrique attributed to the tire incident. Forensic experts believed the dent was consistent with hitting a person or a violent struggle. Then, a twist hit the investigation that threatened to derail everything.
Good evening, I'm Clarice Tinsley. The boyfriend of Christina Morris, a woman who has been missing for more than 3 months, was busted in a drug sting.
Hunter Foster, the boyfriend, was arrested. The media went into a frenzy. Was the boyfriend the killer all along? But the charge wasn't murder. It was distribution of narcotics. It turned out Hunter was part of a massive illegal substance ring in Dallas. He had been selling illicit narcotics to undercover cops. The data he deleted from his phone, it wasn't about Christina. It was evidence of illegal transactions. While Hunter was a criminal, his alibi for the murder held up. He was busy distributing substances miles away when Christina vanished. He checked out as a suspect for the disappearance, leaving only one man in the spotlight. In December 2014, the DNA results came back from the lab. It was the final moment of the investigation phase. The samples taken from the trunk of Enrique's Camaro were a positive match for Christina Morris. Her DNA was in his trunk. Enrique Orochi was arrested and charged with aggravated kidnapping. They couldn't charge him with murder because there was still one massive piece of evidence missing. They had no body. The arrest affidavit revealed the likely motive. A witness, Jessica Boss, told police that Enrique had been making unwanted advances toward her at the party earlier that night. She had rebuffed him, shooting him down in front of others. Enrique left the party angry and humiliated. Detectives believe that when he found himself alone with Christina, his obsession and anger boiled over. He saw an opportunity to take control, to exert power over someone after being rejected. While Enrique sat in jail on a $1 million bond, his family claimed he was despondent and a danger to himself. He refused to talk. He refused to say where Christina was. For 2 long years, the Morris family waited for justice, conducting searches every weekend. Volunteers scoured the fields and marshes of North Texas, hoping to find a clue. "We're going to find Christina," her mother vowed. You know why? Because we're stronger than him. The trial began 2 years later. The prosecution faced a difficult challenge: proving a kidnapping without a victim to tell the tale and without a body to prove death. During the trial, a strange detail emerged that added a bizarre layer to the case. Prosecutors tried to introduce an olive jar into evidence. This jar had been found inside one of Enrique's shoes in his bedroom. Inside the jar were bits of paper, cinnamon, and oil. An investigator testified that he believed it was witchcraft. He claimed Enrique was trying to cook up a dominion over others to silence them or control the outcome of the investigation. The judge, however, did not allow the witchcraft theory into court, dismissing it as speculation. Perhaps it was just where he kept his lucky olives, but it painted a picture of a desperate man trying anything to escape consequences. The state's case relied on the mountain of circumstantial evidence. "We are not required to prove to you what his motive was," the prosecutor told the jury. "We are required to show you who kidnapped Christina Morris." They laid out the timeline, the lies, the CCTV footage, the phone pings, the cleaning supplies, and finally, the DNA in the trunk. The defense argued that without a body, there was no proof she was dead or even kidnapped. They suggested she could have walked out of the garage by another exit. They pointed fingers at Hunter Foster, the drug-dealing boyfriend, claiming police never fully investigated him. "The evidence is not there beyond a reasonable doubt," the defense attorney argued. But the jury saw through the web of lies. Enrique Orochi was found guilty of aggravated kidnapping because the crime was so severe and the evidence so damning.
"We are required to show you who kidnapped Christina Morris in the early morning hours of August 30th of 2014. And the evidence in this case points to one man and one man only, Enrique Orochi."
The judge showed no mercy. Enrique was sentenced to life in prison. He would not be eligible for parole until the year 2046. It was a victory, but a hollow one. Christina was still missing. Enrique, maintaining his innocence, refused to reveal her location. The searches continued. Week after week, volunteers walked through high grass and wooded areas. Then, on March 7th, 2018, nearly 4 years after she vanished, the breakthrough finally came. In a wooded area in the town of Anna, Texas, about 10 miles north of Plano, excavation crews clearing brush for a new development made a tragic discovery. They found skeletal remains. The Collin County medical examiner confirmed the identity. It was Christina Morris. She had been there the entire time, hidden in the brush where Enrique had discarded her.
The Collin County Medical Examiner's Office has examined the recovered remains and this morning has positively identified the remains as those of Christina Morris.
Because of the advanced decomposition and the time that had passed, it was impossible to determine the exact cause of death. The medical examiner could not say how she died, only that she was gone. Because the cause of death could not be scientifically proven, prosecutors decided not to pursue a separate murder charge against Enrique. It was unlikely he would ever see the outside of a prison cell anyway. He is already serving a life sentence. Christina was finally brought home to her family, ending the agonizing uncertainty. The story of Christina Morris is a terrifying reminder of how quickly a normal night can turn into a nightmare. Enrique Orochi, a man described as nice and quiet, harbored a deadly rage that cost a young woman her future. He attacked an innocent friend simply because he felt entitled to female attention that he was denied elsewhere. Christina had her whole life ahead of her. She was a daughter, a friend, and a bright young professional. Now, she is a memory. And Enrique Orochi is just a number in the Texas prison system. The darkness she feared ultimately claimed her, but the light of her family's persistence ensured she was not forgotten in it.